Hey ladies, got a struggle? Need to vent? It's time to join your voice and get down to business with some critical thought, where like-minded ladies share their personal experiences to empower each other, using critical thinking to make wise decisions. And now, here's your host, Lady C.
Hi, this is Lady C. Thank you for tuning in to the final part of the Susan Gaskin story, part 3. And we totally appreciate your comments and your feedback about these episodes. It is so nice to hear that people are really and truly benefiting from these conversations, because without joining our voices online to help people see that there is life after Watchtower, people would feel trapped in their very lives. This is Lady C under the special series, The Struggles of Jehovah's Witness Women.
If you've been in the struggle and want to appear as a guest on our show, email us at exjwct@gmail.com.
So, Susan, what was the series of events that, led up to you realizing that the Jehovah's Witness faith is not the truth?
Well, after I got disfellowshipped, I guess I'm being told from people who've since left the organization, who were in my congregation at the time, they said I was the flavor of the month. Everybody was talking about this. Here's this girl who's a pioneer, is on the platform all the time, and now she's disfellowshipped. It was a shock to everybody. And one day, about a month after I was disfellowshipped, I went for coffee with a bunch of my coworkers, and there was a guy there who I'd known since my teenage years who had been a witness, and I'd heard he'd become an apostate. And he comes out to me and he goes, "Hey, Sue," he goes, "I heard you got the boot." And he's shaking my hand and he's so happy. And I always really liked this guy. I thought he was a cool guy. And anyways, he said to me, do you want to talk about it? And I'm like, sure, So we went out for dinner. A few times we went out, and he was such a huge help to me. I mean, he kept insisting I read Ray Franz's books, but I wasn't ready. I mean, I was terrified. I remember thinking, I'd heard about them, but I was too scared to read them. He goes, "Oh, you got to read them." So probably by our third dinner, he said, "Look, I've got them in my car. You got to read them." I was terrified that I would see something that would mess me up, somehow that. Because I believe that, somehow Satan was involved in these books and that they're full of half-truths that sound right and it would mess with my head. Anyways, long story short, I finally took his offer and borrowed the books, and that was huge for me. Huge. I mean, just the way he wrote, it was so... he's like, "I don't care what you do with your life," kind of thing, but I have to tell you what I know because I was a governing body member. I've been through basically every level of the organization, from the top, from the bottom to the top, and I have to tell you what I know. And he's like, "What you choose to do with it is your decision." So it kind of left me feeling like, okay, he's not looking for followers. He does have information that I do want to hear, and let's just hear him out. It was so non-threatening and so humble. And I think he even used, just the way it looked, it even kind of looked like a Watchtower, the way it was, the font used and everything. It just looked so familiar. And anyway, so I read that, and that pretty much did it for me. Because, there wasn't an online community of ex-witnesses to go to. The supports, the videos and all that we have now wasn't out there at the time. So all I really had were these books, but that book and then his second one, In Search of Christian Freedom.
Well, what year did you leave?
2000. It was the summer of 2000 I got the boot. But what's weird? So I read those books, and even then I was still determined that I probably would come back, not necessarily because I believed it. I mean, they woke me up, but not entirely, oddly enough. I still felt like maybe I should get reinstated just to for my parents' sake, and to clear my name, kind of thing. But I'm a humble person. I don't really care about my name so much. I mean, if people want to say bad things about me, that's their choice. I don't have to hang out with people that think badly of me, But okay, so the odd thing is, I ended up moving to Montreal, and I moved in with this girl that I met through the job that I obtained in Montreal. And would you believe that she lived across the street from a Kingdom Hall?
Wow.
I mean, I remember thinking, is this Jehovah's way of trying to bring me back? I remember actually thinking that. And I walked over to the Kingdom Hall one day to look at their meeting times. And I actually considered, should I come back just for the sake of, like I said, to get reinstated for my parents? But then I thought, you know what? my parents are talking to me. They're not shunning me. And I don't want to come back. And here I'm living in a city that nobody knows that I'm a witness or was a witness. So why am I going to invite this back into my life?
Right.
You know? So I thought, no, don't do that. So I kind of went for several years, just kind of, not believing it's the true organization, but not hating it. Just like I went through a variety of emotions, you know. But what finally woke me up was when I was on Facebook. It wasn't a Facebook group, but it was like a guy. I don't know what he called himself, but I stumbled across this ExJW person. And I guess it's still in your bones. Like I don't know if it gets into your DNA or what, but I think I'll always have an affiliation with the witnesses, whether it's a love or a hate for them. I don't know what it is. Kind of, there's something there. I don't think I can ever fully close that chapter in my life. And I was drawn to this ExJW person or place that this guy had on the net. And but it wasn't enough. He'd post things maybe once a month or something, and I thought it just wasn't enough for me. I needed more. And then, of course, I came across the ExJW recovery group. And I read people's stories, and that was, I think, the final straw to waking me up. I mean, I thought my story, for me it was bad, but to me it's nothing compared to what other people have been through. You know, when I read that other people have been through what I went through, and they were treated the same way by the elders, and they were judged and turned upon and slandered and be made to look bad, you know, and that how the worldly people were there to help you, and they have no hidden agenda. They're just there because they're good people. I mean, I just kept getting that same message over and over again, and that was the final straw for me. And it finally led to my activism. And I only just started speaking out, last November, I think was when I did my first video.
Yes, Susan, your videos are very good. People really enjoy them. I mean, you're very polished and classy, and you're not bitter. You're not showing any anger, any animosity in your heart. You're just here telling the story about what you were involved in. And I think that's what people need. They need people to be able to tell the story without all of the anger and bitterness. And I think you're doing a very good job in what you're doing here online with your activism.
Thank you so much, Lady C. I appreciate that. I feel that you can be happy in that organization. There's different types of people. I mean, if I'm not there to destroy people's beliefs and to destroy their hope for the future. My problem is that it's an organization that is preying upon people that are desperate for something, and they're handing them out. It's like someone who's desperate, who's going to die of cancer, and someone's handing them, vitamins that are just basically colored candy and giving them this idea that this is going to help them when it's all just a fraud. And I think that's what bothers me is the fact that you're not getting the hope and you're not living your life, and they're hijacking your life, and that's what bothers me. But what people choose to do beyond that is their own choice. I mean, I can't physically pull people out of it. You know, I think, and if you choose to believe it, well, that's up to you.
Well, I think you made a good point when you said that some people might enjoy this religion. I think that some people need someone to tell them what to do, and they like that. And I feel that in the Jehovah's Witness religion, the reason why it didn't work for me is because I wanted to do things beyond what they would allow us to do, or, culturally speaking. Because, of course, we do know that they're not going to tell you that you can't do anything, but it's the culture of the religion to not want to do what you want to do, or you're being accused of not loving Jehovah. Everything was always a wait and see, and you can do this later. But I wanted to do and live my life now, at that moment, because I don't know about the later. And I'm sure a lot of people felt that way.
Good point.
So anyway, Susan, what are some of the lessons learned that you would like to share with our listening audience that may be able to help them?
Well, okay, first of all, one thing is that, we're always taught that, witness guys, you have to marry a witness. And I had some worldly guys that were interested in me, and there was one in particular that has continuously reappeared in my life. I mean, he was someone I met that was an amazing person, really sweet. We got along great, but because he wasn't a witness, I couldn't date him, so I pushed him away, and I ended up marrying the guy I married. And so the idea that, even the best non-JW guy is worse than a crappy JW guy. I mean, that is so not true. There are some amazing men out there that aren't brought up in this organization. And I pushed them all away to marry what I thought was doing the right thing, marrying a witness. And it turns out, that was a huge mistake. Who knows what would have happened in my life? Oddly enough, this guy has reappeared a few years after I got married. He came to my office. He was shaking. He was really, really upset. He said he had a question for me, and he wanted to know if I wasn't a Jehovah's Witness, would I have dated him? And the answer is yes. Okay, but I told him no because I just wanted him to go away. I thought, look, buddy, I'm thinking in my mind, I'm married now. Like, there's no place for you, right? I just wanted to send him away and not, I know it's cruel. I felt like it was a cruel answer, but I felt like it's the best answer to just get him off of me. Like, don't think about me anymore. I'm married. I'm taken. I'm gone, So he kind of left kind of upset. And oddly enough, he's reappeared in my life again. He said to me, hi, I just wanted to say hi. I think about you from time to time. I watched some of your videos. You're doing great.
Oh, my God. So he's one of your online followers now?
Well, he's married and he's got twins. He and his wife just had twins. And he seems happy, but obviously he still thinks about me from time to time. And you just wonder where your life would have been had you not been a witness.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I'm happily married now, okay, so I don't want to entertain the thought of, and I have a son now. Obviously he wouldn't be here if I hadn't married my husband now, who I dearly love.
Yeah.
But it is interesting to think sometimes about, what would have happened with your life had I married this guy, because I really, really liked him, and he really, really liked me, and I pushed him away because I thought I needed to be with a witness, and look how that turned out.
Well, Susan, you really got to count your blessings because here you had two men knocking down your door. Some people can't even find one, so at least you do know that there was no shortage of men in your world outside of the Watchtower organization.
Exactly.
And what lesson can you share with us about what you personally learned about the elders?
Okay, so here's another lesson. If you are a Jehovah's Witness and you have elders that want to speak to you, because they say they're worried about you or they're caring for you and they want to help you in some way, they're not. I've learned that they're just fishing to see if they have enough dirt on you to have a judicial committee. And it's so bizarre. Why don't they help people? This is what floors me. Why aren't they there to help you? They even said to me on my judicial committee, we don't know if it's weakness or wickedness. And I said, it's weakness. It's not wickedness. I'm not trying to be wicked. I'm a human being, and I'm acting out what probably 99% of the population would have done.
That's true.
And I'm not saying it's right, but I didn't realize I had any other choice. I didn't realize I could just leave my ex, Mm-hmm. So when elders want to speak to you, it's not. I'm not saying there aren't some nice elders. My father was a very caring elder, but unfortunately, what ends up happening is the message. Even my father ended up disfellowshipping people, and it really was hard on him. So I'm not saying they're bad people, the elders. There are some bad elders, but there's also some good ones. But all I'm saying is, it's that they're company men, basically, and they will do what they're told, even though it may go against their own conscience. So when they're there to quote unquote help you, they're actually there looking to see if they have enough to judge you. Because within a week, I was disfellowshipped, and it just made my head spin how quickly that all happened.
Right, and then you also said something about marrying for love. Yeah,
just how important it is to think it through. Well, to me, it's just so important to marry for love. I for whatever reason, and I do blame this on the organizations, the mentality that they had, that a person could be satisfied with just marrying someone who's a witness because it's what you're supposed to do and because the end is near, and, this idea that, what I said earlier about, if he's really bad, Jehovah will destroy him anyways, and if he's good, he'll be perfect. So as if, you're not really thinking it through. You just see the guy as a witness. I saw him he was a nice-looking guy, and he seemed to be a decent person because he is nice to people. It's when you marry him that you realize he's crappy to his wife. So, yeah, marry for love and think it through, because you will be with this person for, I was with him for 10 years as a married couple, and the end still hasn't come. So we would have been married now for over 25 years had I stuck with him.
Now that's very scary.
And as I said, you can marry and you can stick together, or you can be stuck with each other. And I would have been the latter, stuck with somebody who just treats you like garbage. And I think, the other thing is I never really considered his family. Again, I didn't really think it through. I should have seen through that.
Yes, Susan, you're right. Because at the end of the day, no one else has to live with this man. You're the one that has to wake up with him and go to sleep with him at night. No one else has to put up with what he's putting down. And it's easy for him to fake it for a couple of hours in front of people that don't know the real person. But you know the deal. You know what it's like. And so therefore, you have to make your decision as to whether you're going to continue to put up with something like that.
Definitely. You can't change a person. I mean, if a person's been brought up for 25 years a certain way, it's difficult to change who they really are.
So, Susan, if you were going to help someone to make a decision about whether they should marry a particular person or not, what type of criteria would you help them to put in place?
Well, I think it's really important to know who you are and to know what you want. The organization tries to mold women a certain way.
Absolutely.
And we're not all the same.
No, we're not. We're all different individuals striving for different goals and opportunities.
And we all have different needs and different desires, and you're never allowed to really think about what you want and what would make you happy. It's always for the organization. You always have to give to them, and they mask it saying you're giving to Jehovah.
Yeah, you make a really good point here because we're so busy trying to follow rules and make sure that we're not going against what is written that we totally don't really realize how much we're giving up in the decision making and what we can do to make our own self happy.
Definitely. But people don't really think it through of what do they want. And once I got out from all that negativity within the organization, which, they like to say that they're positive, but it is actually a very doom and gloom organization. You've always got this end hanging over your head, the end of the world hanging over your head, and you've got to get out there and save people lest you be blood guilty. Once you get away from all that negativity, you have a chance to realize that there's a whole world out there, and there's nothing wrong with enjoying your life.
Yeah, that's the first thing I realized after we had left the organization, because I had been held down so long in this organization. I didn't have many choices to do anything. But after I left the Watchtower, I realized that I had so many opportunities open to me. And for those of you listening to this program today, I want you to realize that the same thing is true for you. The sky is the limit. Don't listen to what other people are telling you, especially when they don't have to walk in your shoes. Look for opportunities and pursue them.
Exactly. And when I was working at this one place, I met this girl, and she was saying to me, if you're looking for a husband, which I was at the time. I wouldn't say I was looking for a husband, but yeah, I was looking at some point in the future to find someone, definitely, and because I was single at the time. And she said to me, she called it a programmation. She goes, write down what it is you want. And I never really thought about it. What do I want? I was always thinking about how I could please a man. What could I do for him? But I never really thought about, what do I want in a man? And I wrote down about 10 things. And she said, what you do is write down what you want and then put it out there to the universe. It's kind of like when you go to a restaurant and you order, the chicken. You don't expect to get the liver. You order the chicken and you get the chicken.
Hey, I like that. I like that analogy. If you don't get the chicken, send it back. So ladies, keep in mind, if you got the wrong man, it's okay to send him back. Don't keep dealing with all this drama.
And she says, put your order out there, what it is you want, and go every night, look at this list again, so that it's firmly in your mind of what it is you want. And she says, what you want then will become attracted to you. And then not long after that, the Oprah Winfrey show about The Secret and the law of attraction all sort of came out. So it all kind of reinforced this idea of what my friend had told me. And within 2 months so I did this. I wrote down what it is I wanted, and I fully expected to get it. And I did. Within 2 months, I met my husband, and I'm not joking. He's everything on the list. And I wasn't trying to be greedy. I wasn't saying I want to marry a billionaire. Or I just wrote down things that were important to me because I had some health problems. I wanted a man with a good sense of humor who could be good with money. And I wrote down various things: good with family, loving, all the things I wanted in a man. And like I said, within 2 months, I met my husband, and we've been inseparable ever since. Since the day I met him, I don't think we've spent one day apart. Other than when he's gone away on a business trip. But other than that, we've been together by choice every day.
Well, Susan, you must have been really working hard on that wish list since you were able to obtain all the results and reel that man in 2 months. Way to go, girl.
what I really like about this wish list thing, or this, or I prefer to call it an order, is what I like about it is it gets you really thinking about what it is you want, and the mind is very powerful, and it's a very funny thing. And I'll give you an example of what I mean. If you were to buy a car, let's say you bought a red Toyota, Corolla or whatever. The mind is funny because once you buy that car, you tend to notice everyone else who has that car. It's not because your mind is telling you, oh, now look for all the red Toyota Corollas. It's just, but there's something about your subconscious mind that starts you thinking that way. And when you get your mind programmed to think, I'm looking for this, it's funny how it starts looking for you too. And there is that law of attraction, and I'm not trying to sound like some new age weirdo, but I really believe there's something to be said about energy. Scientists have actually proven that thoughts and energy are things, and they're very powerful. And if you put out positive thoughts, that you will find these things are drawn to you.
So Susan, tell me, how did you and your husband actually meet?
The way I met my husband was very, very interesting. And oddly enough, I'll just add this one thing before, I don't want to belabor this, but one thing he said was he was also looking for somebody, and he had said to one of his best friends, he was kind of a shy guy. He's not one to go up to girls and ask them out and stuff. And he said he and his friends made a pact. They said, the next time we see a girl that catches our eye, we will go ask her out. And I was the next girl.
Yeah, well, that sounds like a case of perfect timing to me. Good stuff. Way to go, Susan.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of cool.
Yeah, and based on what you're telling me, with everything that you went through with the crappy husband, and, when you were a Jehovah's Witness and feeling that you could only marry this certain man because of this religion, here you were able to find someone that was very much looking for someone with your qualities, and not only that, being able to appreciate you for having such and treating you the way a woman really should be treated. So, Susan, your experience is a perfect one to help women see that they don't have to just limit their options to trying to find a man at the Kingdom Hall.
Exactly.
I'm really enjoying your story. It is just so very interesting. And I know we've been talking for quite a while now, but is there anything that during this interview you would like to share with our audience that you haven't talked about yet?
I guess if one thing I could say about the organization that I've learned is that they really have that mentality that you're with us or you're against us. And if you're against us, you're garbage to us. And my family never really believed that, as you can see, because they never shunned me. But my dad began to realize at the end there just how important family is, And it's too bad witnesses don't have that same loyalty to each other, and the friends within the organization too. There's such a lack of loyalty to each other. There's a scripture, and I think about it from time to time. That one about it's in Proverbs, I think, where it says there is one that is sticking closer to you than a brother. And whenever I think about that scripture, I just laugh. I think, what a joke. That has not been my experience at all. As soon as you say anything they don't like or raise any doubts, they just chuck you out the door.
Yeah, that is so true. And you know what? I remember you telling me about when you graduated from high school that you didn't choose to go to the university. But what was it? Tell our audience what it was that your father did encourage you to do.
Well, there was a lot of pressure from that girl who was my best friend, the one who kind of pushed me to get baptized with her, to pioneer and clean houses. And I was offered, because I did well in high school, I had a work experience with the government, and they ended up offering me a job just for the summer. And I wanted to take it, but then my friends like, oh, we're supposed to pioneer together and clean houses, and then I thought, okay, I guess I'll do that instead. And my parents are like, no, take the job. Like at least you're going to get some experience, and then you can it'll be like cleaning houses is hard work. At least if you can do this kind of job, you'll make more money and you'll have experience. And so they encouraged me to take the job. And then when, of course, I did take the job and told my friend that, she just she literally walked away right from the middle of the Kingdom Hall. I told her at the end of a meeting, I said, yeah, I'm going to take the job. And she just literally got up and just walked away from me and left me standing there. And then she sicked her sister on me, who'd been out of school for 3 years. And she graduated 3 years before us and didn't work a day in her life, didn't pioneer either, just sat on the couch listening to the radio all day. And she comes up to me and says, if you take the job, you're going to be working for Satan's system. I thought,
wow.
Who the heck are you? Like at least if you were pioneering or doing something with your life, I would have had a bit more respect for her. But to say that.
And I'm sure that the encouragement that your parents gave you to take that job had a lot to do with the experience of him quitting his job in 1975 after all of the lies that they had believed from the Watchtower. So definitely I can say that your father really had your best interests at heart and didn't want you to lose out on any of the opportunities that you had.
Exactly. No, he could see. My parents always believed that money is for protection. Oddly enough, both my brothers went to university, and one of my brothers is now a chief financial officer in a bank. He's making amazing money, and they wouldn't have discouraged me from going to university. This oddly enough was at a time when the society was really down on education beyond high school. And higher learning or whatever they call it. But my brothers did very well in their university, and it was very frowned upon by people within our congregation. But and this is the thing, because I know your show is about women. I felt like as a woman, I didn't need that. I felt like the end is going to come. I just need a job that could support me enough to be able to pioneer and make ends meet. I felt like as a woman, I didn't need the university education. And I think that is just such a detrimental way of thinking. Because why should a woman be deprived, just because you're a woman, you're not going to allow yourself to get that education? I paid for that for the rest of my life, because I worked in several different jobs, and at first it wasn't bad. At first when you're working for the government, you're making good money, and all your friends are going to university, like all your school friends, and so they're working at McDonald's. So for the first few years, I'm doing great, because I'm making a great salary, and they're just making peanuts. But what ends up happening is they end up getting, their degrees, and now they're making like twice what I'm making, and within no time, I'm getting the coffee for them. I'm making bookings for them. And I don't mind it. I'm not saying it's because it's a lack of humility. It's the feeling of I had a brain, and I was very smart. I did very, very good in high school. I got lots of awards. I got like $1,500 scholarships, like literally handed to me. I didn't use the money for school. I got to use that money for me. I got checks given to me. It was supposed to be for university, but I could use it for me. And I did very well, and it just seemed like such a waste. That I could have actually done something with my life instead of just getting coffee for people and typing up a document,
Yeah, it's such a sad thing that the Watchtower Society teaches that sustenance and covering is all you need, and they instill in their members that to do anything otherwise suggests that you are trying to strive for materialistic things. So, many people settle for these mediocre jobs. So I always look at it like this. Whatever happened to working smarter and not harder? And especially for individuals that are given opportunities, because we all know that a good opportunity is hard to come by, and for those of us that had them and lose them, they never come back again.
You're right. And there's always someone who's got something worse, first of all. Like I've always felt that no matter how bad my life is, let's face it, there are people who have a lot worse things in life. And the other thing that I often think about is, you could either choose to be happy or you could choose to be miserable. Like, I don't want to spend a minute of my life being miserable. Why? Why should I be miserable in life when there's so many wonderful things to be happy about? So I choose to focus on the positive and not on the negative.
That's really an excellent approach to take, especially because you can't go back and live your life again. It is what it is. And at the end of the day, we have to accept what hand we were dealt.
Exactly. And there's so much more I'm thinking about that could be said, but yeah, this could go on forever. There's just so many lessons learned, when you come out of an organization like that. You're just simply not prepared to deal with things like the death of my father. The things that you're just not prepared for because you're told that we're not going to die, that the end's going to come. But this is the same lie that Satan told. You positively will not die. Well, guess what? You are going to die, and you need to prepare for that, It's just a sad reality of life that that you learn when you leave an organization like that.
Now, Susan, we've been talking about you and your husband and experiences that you had with him, but tell our listening audience about some of the experiences that you had with other women in the congregation.
One thing that I find disappointing about women sometimes is how we tend not to stick up for each other, and we just, when things go south, we just throw each other under the bus. I mean, that ex-best friend that I had who went to the police about me, the other thing that's sort of interesting about her, I mean, keep in mind that I was always supportive of this person throughout, 2 marriage failures and her depression and, different things that she was going through. I was always supportive of her. And there was a point when she decided she wanted to have larger breasts. And she wanted me to ask my husband if he would lend her the money for her to have a boob job. And I didn't want that because my husband didn't treat me well. And he always made me, I barely eked by with money. He would never help me in any regard to pay the bills. I did my best to pay them with my salary, but he would not help me an inch. He would not give me an inch to support me in any way. And so money was very tight for me. And if I were to go to him and ask him to lend me money for my friend to have a boob job, he would have hung that over my head. Like, now I owe him this massive amount of money. And I didn't want that. So I said to her, look, if you want to ask him for money to have your boob job, I'm fine with that. I don't mind. But please don't put me in the position where now I owe him something because, I've got to ask him for this. So she said, okay. So she asked him for the money, and he lent it to her. And within several years, she ended up paying him back. I know, it's so weird, isn't it? The thing that gets weirder about it, okay, is that after we split up, guess who ended up together? I remember him saying he wanted, and I knew he would say that this is so him. He wanted to get his money's worth. That was his excuse for why he ended up with her. But I thought, isn't that funny? So here's this couple, when I end up leaving, getting the boot from the organization, guess who ends up together? She ends up leaving her husband and ends up with the one that she eloped with. She ends up leaving him and ends up with my ex. And for years they were on and off. And just to show the kind of mentality that I was dealing with, as I said, he was emotionally an abusive man, but never physically abusive with me. But she has since gotten in touch with me after all these years, and now she's left the organization too, and he's out of the organization as well, my ex. It didn't last long, when he was picking up babies and going to meetings and crying. It only lasted a couple of months, and then he stopped going. But she contacted me and was telling me how physically abusive he was with her. He physically pulled hair right out of her head, pushed her down. She'd broken her a muscle in her foot, and she needed him to take her to the hospital. Wow, he wouldn't even. She had to drive herself to the hospital. This is the kind of person you're dealing with. He was like 100% selfish, and the thing that's odd about it is that he actually contacted me. My ex contacted me several years after we'd been apart from each other. I don't even know how he got my email address because it was my work email address. From the current job I was in, and he just said, I just want closure on our relationship. I just want to say that you were a great wife, and I'm really sorry things didn't work out, and I do wish the best for you. And he says, I've never met anyone else like you, and just went on singing my praises. So I felt like, okay, well, that was nice, So I actually felt that maybe he'd changed. Maybe he's learned something. Maybe he's a better person, and that's great. I don't wish evil on him. But then this ex-best friend tells me years later that how physically abusive he was with her, and I'm just like, wow, So it just shows that people don't change, and it's too bad I didn't see that from the very beginning of our relationship, But all this to say that people like women. It's too bad that they don't stick up for each other. It's too bad that at the first, maybe I should say Jehovah's Witness women, at the first opportunity, instead of trusting your friend and being there for them the way they've been there for you, as soon as you get disfellowshipped, it's like you're just worthless to them. And they seem to feel that they could just walk all over you and treat you like garbage. Take your ex-husband. Well, I think it's too bad that men have that expression, bros before hoes, as if there's some kind of something between men that they'll stick together. And girls, there isn't that so much. That's something that comes to mind when I think about your channel here, your show, is that it's a good place for women to realize that we have struggles and we need to be there for each other instead of just throwing each other under the bus the way women tend to do. I find, that's been my experience. And I just think it's too bad.
It's very bad. Well, we have come to the end of our program, and I want to thank everyone for tuning in to The Critical Thought and listening to the Susan Gaskin story. I know she was very happy to be here to share her experiences with everyone. This has been Lady C, hosting the special series, The Struggles of Jehovah's Witness Women. And thank you so much, Susan, for being a guest on our show.
I was thrilled to have been here, and I totally enjoyed myself. Thank you so much for having me, and I really appreciate all that you're doing, Lady C.
The views and opinions of our guests do not necessarily reflect the opinions of Critical Thinkers. This program was sponsored by Critical Thinkers.